Jobs, a team you can trust. Start growing your team today at totaljobs.com.
For delicious, award-winning jerky and biltong, visit RagingBullSnacks.com and enjoy 15% off your first order.
Raging Bull Snacks, made without compromise.
Hear that? That's the sound of BP Me Rewards members earning points when they shop at BP. Points to spend on a mouth-watering something in-store or to put towards fuel. Register with BP Me Rewards and get a welcome bonus of 1,000 points worth a tasty £5. From sweet treats and hot meals to mid-journey snacks, we've got it all. Simply download the BP Me app to get started. BP, here for all of life's journeys. Offer is November 28th, 2022. T's and C's apply. See full conditions at bpmerewards.co.uk.
Kick off the celebrations with 2 Co-op stone-baked pizzas and 4 Budweisers for just £6 at your local Co-op. Get your home team together. Co-op. It's what we do. Ends December 13th. See shelf edging for included products. Excludes Northern Ireland. Selected stores subject to availability. Please drink responsibly.
This is LBC with Sheila Fogarty.
Tons of calls coming in on this. You've been texting as well. Social housing, says Rob, is a disgrace in this country, is still set in the 19th century, and this being one of the richest countries in the world. We should look at the Denmark model of social housing, which is far superior. I'll confess I don't know much about the Denmark model of social housing, but I will look into it. This text says, I work for a housing association. A lot of investment money has been diverted into fire safety works, such as installing sprinklers, changing cladding, compliance checks, ever since Grenfell. However, investment in the stock itself is low and the repair services are poorly managed. Well, that is an interesting insight from the sector itself. Most damp and mould is caused by condensation. Most condensation is caused by little or no ventilation. Most ventilation problems are caused by far too much insulation badly installed, says this text. No name attached to it. One more text before we talk to Charlie in Bristol. I and my family have privately rented for 15 years. All rooms have moisture and mould. I'm currently taking a week off work to try to decorate and fix this because my landlord said simply just open some windows. This is a common problem in so many houses, and landlords, private or council, don't give an iota as long as they get their rent. A complete overhaul and reform needs to be made at all levels of renting, says Adam in Southport. Charlie in Bristol, hello there.
Hi Sheila, you okay?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, you are a private renter.
Yeah, my wife and I, we've got 3 young children. One of our children is a type 1 diabetic, registered disabled. My wife, she lives with arthritis, suffers with chronic pain. We private rent. We have mould and damp issues with asbestos, and all the issues we have are because the property we live in needs a new roof. We've had that verified by an independent roofer that we've paid for to come round and have a look. The issue we have is we report issues to our landlord, and as soon as we do, it's a landlord, she just got this property as a spare property. As soon as we report an issue, what we get back is, this could be expensive for me to fix. Do you know what? I think I might just look at selling the property. So every time we've reported an issue, that's the response
He
we've got.
threatens to sell it.
Yeah. So, and to get any kind of help from the local authority, you need to prove that you've been reporting these issues on several occasions over several months.
To the landlord.
Exactly, yeah. And you need to have, written proof of this. So if it's a phone call, you don't have record of it. And so this is the
Can you
problem
email him or her?
Yeah, we have done, and again, the response has always been, do you know what, a new roof, that's going to be a little bit too much money for me. I think I'm going to sell the property. So
but at least you have evidence that you're asking for help in the email, don't you? You have a paper trail in a sense.
Yeah, we do. But obviously, with my wife and her chronic pain, a move is, and there are limited properties available in the area where we live, and the thought of moving at the moment, when my wife isn't well and our son's registered disabled, we've got to the point where we'll just put up with the issues. We'll try and patch up what we can ourselves, because we've got this threat of eviction just hanging over us.
And are you aiming long term to buy, or is that beyond you at the moment?
We are trying to save at the moment, and that is something that we're looking at doing, hopefully in the next few years, which is difficult with a young family trying to save especially at the moment with everything
Of
else
course, yeah.
that's going on. But that is the end goal. But I think, you know, a lot on the show so far today has been about people in social housing, and I just thought, I'd like to fill in as a private renter.
Yes, I'm glad you did, because we've had a couple of calls from the private rented sector, but no, you're right. You're right to call in, and you're very welcome as well. Well, I hope you manage to get your own place, that you can control exactly what happens to it and what you choose and all the rest of it, because it will make a great deal of difference. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks very much. Rachel has called from Poole. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Sheila. All right.
Yes. Yeah. You run a cleaning business.
I do run a cleaning business, yeah, quite an experienced one, so we've seen it all, I thought, until up to yesterday. And I think with everything that's been sort of in the news recently, it's been on the forefront of my mind, with obviously cleaning, etc. And we had a phone call last week from a carer who cares for a gentleman, and said the gentleman's living in an apartment, and the bathroom's in really bad condition. So I didn't really know what we were going to be turning up to, and I mean, we've cleaned some really rotten places and really bad bathrooms, and as we walked in, the mould that was literally climbing out of the walls and out of the door frames into the hallway.
When you say climbing out, do you just mean spreading along the walls?
It was just spreading everywhere into the hallway. And I put the light on in the bathroom, and I have never seen mould like it. It was like crystals that had gone all foamy coming out of the tiles, and it was the blackest mould you have ever seen. And the ceiling was just different colours of blue and
was it
green
pretty?
and grey.
Deadly, but was it pretty?
Well, I wouldn't. I just looked at it in absolute disbelief, and I thought,
yeah.
How are we going to help this man? I mean, this gentleman,
Is this council housing that he's in?
Yes, so this gentleman is disabled, he's in a wheelchair, and he actually lives in a disability housing association in the local area in Bournemouth. And I couldn't believe that they have complained multiple times. And, we're not specialist mould cleaners. We are just domestic and commercial cleaners. We did the best we could. I was actually having to scrape it off the razor blade. It was that thick to get it off of the tiles.
So it was like a skin, really, on the walls?
Yeah, it was. It was a skin. And, I mean, we did a good job, but it's only going to come back.
Yeah.
We're only patching it up just so that it was at least hygienic for the gentleman to have a shower. And I thought, these people are helpless. That they can't, he can't clean it himself. The carer is doing the best that she can do, but we're going to have to go back and finish it off for him. But it's only going to be an ongoing issue. So I'm in the process now of trying to find out a bit more information, and I'm personally going to put a complaint in on his behalf and say, this isn't acceptable.
Yeah, it isn't. And as you say, you've done a good job, but it will come back.
It will come back, yeah, and it's not.
And what do you think is causing it? Were you able to? What was the house like beside the mould?
So there's no ventilation at all in the bathroom. It's completely closed in, and I don't think the fan is actually working. But just to add to the problems, he is ground floor, and the flooring has come away from the tiles as well. So all of the moisture and water is getting underneath the flooring, which is then a sludge is then coming up out of the flooring, which is just causing this damp cycle constantly.
Well, I mean, it might not even just be the water from his use of the bathroom that's under the floor. It could be that the water is under the floor, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, the drainage. I mean, it's a really old property, and they're just.
It's like living in a swamp by the sounds of it.
It literally was, and I walked away from it and thought, I mean, we've done our bit, and hopefully we've helped out as much as we can. But I just wanted to share my experience, because I know there's people out there that are living in absolute awful conditions, but we did our bit, and hopefully I can help.
Well, you certainly did by advocating for him as well as cleaning his house. Thanks, Rachel, for your call. Gosh, that was an awful description, wasn't it, Rachel? In Poole, it's 2:30. Let's get some headlines from Amelia Cox.
The RMT says it won't be calling off upcoming rail strikes despite having a positive first meeting with the new Transport Secretary. General Secretary Mick Lynch says no progress has been made, but they are starting to get a dialogue. There are 10 times more people in hospitals in England with flu last week than there were this time last year. Doctors have described the situation for children as awful and have raised concerns about a lack of paediatric intensive care beds. And net migration in the UK has climbed to a record 500,000. Around 504,000 more people are estimated to have moved to the UK than left the country in the 12 months to June. LBC weather, heavy rain moving eastwards across the UK this afternoon. It'll be followed by sunny spells and blustery showers, a high of 13 degrees.
LBC.
Your wife is just through here.
Christian!
Oh no.
Are you safe? Thank you.
Helping millions of people in crisis across Ukraine and around the world starts with you. Support us at redcross.org.uk. Together, we are the world's emergency responders.
If you've lost £3,000 or more in a scam or fraud, then tell CEL. CELsolicitors.co.uk specialise in confidential, no-win, no-fee fraud and scam recovery. So if you started a relationship online and were tricked into sending them money, you could have been scammed. Don't let them get away with it. Let us help you try to get your money back. We listen, we care, we win.
Please insert your bank card. How would you like your bank to invest your money? Press A for logging in.
So aggressive, this black mole. It was just before Christmas Day. I reported it to the social housing, and that was last Christmas. And to this day, I'm still battling to try and get them to rectify the problem. I can encapsulate it all basically. It's like putting a plaster over a gunshot wound.
Yeah.
I'm ex-forces, and I believe that they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Just that typical sort of, oh, he's ex-squaddy, he's robust, he'll be fine.
Yeah, but yeah, he can handle it.
Yeah, he can handle it, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is, every human body reacts the same to bad conditions, you know. You've got...
Yeah, correct.
You deserve good conditions. It doesn't matter what you do for a living or what you did for a living.
And this black mold, it was in my kitchen. I forgot to mention that. It was in my kitchen. That's why I first noticed it. In the living room and in my bedroom. I started having breathing problems. So I got in touch with them again. I said, you need to sort this out. Is there any chance I can have a bedroom dehumidifier? Because somebody had told me to ask them this. And it was like pulling teeth, so I try and get blood out of the stone. They give me one in March 2022, just this March, just on. And it turned up at the door, and it was an industrial dehumidifier.
Yeah.
But I forgot to mention I'm disabled as well. And I was like, what do you want me to do with this? The guys, nothing to do with them. They said, we're just told to deliver it. And it was lumbered on me for about 10 months.
And you just plugged it in, did you, and off it went?
They showed me how it worked, and I had to get somebody in to move it from room to room.
Because they're big, ugly things, aren't they, those industrial ones?
It's big, yeah. For the listeners, it's about the size of a fridge freezer, you know, a freezer, like a little chest freezer.
Yeah, oh yeah, so it was big.
Size of a cooker, sort of size.
Yes.
With wheels on, and it's noisy. So they give you that. There was no, we're going to pay you X amount. It was me asking them, how much are you going to help me run this thing, right? Because it's industrial.
A lot of electricity,
it doesn't take much energy. It did. They ended up saying, we'll give you £6 a day. It was in March. It's not long gone back. And then did it
improve the damp?
It did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say improve it. It became bearable. That I didn't really notice as much as before this. I mean, I was putting it on and I had to leave the room. I had to go out for a walk or something like. There's no way you could sleep with this thing. It's
Too noisy, yeah.
Yeah, they're not made for someone to go to sleep at night like that. So I don't know why they give me that, because I told them just before, and they knew this as well. I broke my back, and I just had an operation on my back. I had it's posterior anterior ILF or something like this. I had 10 screws, 3 fusions. They went through my rib cage, took my bottom rib. I had no L1. It completely shattered. They reconstructed.
You weren't
my
mobile.
L1.
You weren't mobile.
Yeah, but it was something like a 20-hour operation, like, and they knew this, and they gave me an industrial dehumidifier after it. I thought that was just a bit of a kick in the teeth, really. You know,
or failing to think, just not thinking.
Yeah, just not thinking. Or I hope this isn't the case, that they did say, hey, he's a complaint, just give him that shut.
No, I doubt it. I
don't know.
It improved the damp and the mold, but did it permanently improve it?
I don't know. It didn't stop the black mold coming through, but it improved the air, the quality of air, especially in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's sucking up quite a lot of water, also sucking up quite a lot of energy that I had to put into it for about 10 months.
Yeah.
And they said we'll give you £6 a week every week. That didn't materialise.
But the source of the damp was what?
Sorry, say again?
What was the source of the damp and the...
Still to this day, and I've been asking this question, and I'll say the housing, the Social Housing Association on air. Am I allowed to do that?
I'd rather you didn't, actually, just for the purpose, just so we can be careful if there's something horribly critical. But the reason I ask is, was there any attempt to find out why the mould was growing?
They've done 2 damp inspections, and that damp inspection, they're part of the social housing. There's been no independent damp inspection that's happened, and I've never seen the results. Never told me why this damp is penetrating through the walls. I mean, it was last Christmas. It was running down the walls of the kitchen. I was like, what's going on here?
Well, is the external wall brick?
Yes. No. Sorry, it's stone and brick. So.
But it's got line in it, has it? Because it sounds to me like your line needs redoing. That the front of the house needs re-rendering, or those walls need re-rendering so that the building can breathe.
Rendered one side. Which it was coming in through that side.
But has it been re-rendered properly would be my question, because if you just...
I don't know.
Yeah, because if you just cover up a wall that needs re-rendering and you don't render it properly, the house won't breathe, because that's why they use lime between bricks, so it can breathe. And if it doesn't breathe, it'll get watery and damp.
They hacked off the old rendering and put on new rendering, and then the inside they put plasterboard, the black mould. They cleaned it off. Well, they said they did. I believe them. They said they cleaned it off and just put it over the top. And I said, where's the damp coming from? Like, and one of the builders said, I believe when there was a little old woman who lived here before me. She was disabled. She had a disabled ramp for a wheelchair on the front door, and they built it quite high. One of the builders said they built that above the DPC, the damp-proof course, which at the time I didn't know what it was like. So what's a DPC? Yeah. And the back as well, he said they've patioed, and they've patioed over the top of the old patio, and it's raised quite high, and it looked like they built it over the deep.
That sounds feasible, what they're describing to you.
That's my what I said to them. Like I said, is it because of this? Because that's the walls that are majorly affected from this black mold. It's coming up from the floor upwards, and they said no. There is no DPC in your property because it's too old. And I said, well, I've sort of looked online and I've you know, I know the law, 1875. Any property
You can damp-proof an old house.
They said they drilled and filled the wall, and I said, "Can you show me the documentation, you know, for when this was done, which walls?" And no, I haven't got nothing back. So they're in the process now of. Well,
God,
they
it's
come
hard
back
work, isn't it? Hard work.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard. It's very hard work. They've just basically put plasterboard over the top of it, and now in the kitchen I'm opening my cupboards and it stinks of black mold. I can't see the damp. It's still in the air. And
But you can still smell that musty smell in the cupboard.
It stinks. And one of the damp inspectors that come back, I told him, I said, "Stick your nose in there," and he did. He went, "Oh."
And what kind of cupboard is it? What would you typically put in that cupboard? Oh, well, you can't put food in there, can you?
I had to throw away all my food just a little after Christmas. It had all solidified, and I was told by the damp inspector, "And don't eat that." I was like, "Yeah, I'm really going to eat it, like, you know." But yeah, it's stunk. I ruined all my food. But they compensated for my food, and also in my bedroom, the water, where it would run down the walls. By the skirting board, it ruined my brand new carpet.
I mean, it's just, it sounds to me, I mean, even though you've obviously got some respite there from the damp, from the dehumidifier and the job that they've done with the internal plasterboard and the re-rendering, you've got to wonder whether they've done anything about what's making the inside of that wall wet in the first place. It sounds like a cover-up job to me, more ways than one. Thanks, Harry. Gosh, these are difficult things for people to live in, and you know yourself, even if you are fortunate enough to have your own place, that when something is wrong with it, you're not quite as relaxed at home, are you, if something is wrong in your house, even though you've got the power, probably in all likelihood, to fix it, and you will fix it. It's just until it's done, your home isn't quite the same. So I can only imagine that feels multiplied many times over if you're dealing with some of the conditions that you've been describing to me today. It's 2:46.
LBC, Nick Ferrari at breakfast. The Housing Secretary is stopping funding for the housing association that rented out that mould-infested flat to the family of the 2-year-old boy who died. Michael Gove joins me now. By stopping the cash, how will that help them?
We're saying, look, first of all, just do your basic job. You presided over a tragedy.
Back in 2016, you and some fellow Conservatives voted against proposed new rules requiring private sector landlords to ensure their properties are fit for human habitation. Are these chickens coming home to roost?
No, because the legislation that was brought forward in 2016 was subsequently adopted, but there is an important point, which is that not enough people are aware of the existence of these rules.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Voila, the bill.
This one's on me. No, please. Come on, I'm serious. How about I pay for the starters?
Hey, chill. It's Black Friday, and BT are gonna split the bill. Get 6 months of half-price BT Superfast Fibre, all for just $14.49 a month. Hurry, offer ends 8th of December. Currently $28.99 for month 7, 24-month contract, broadband only. New customers CPI plus 2.9% increase each March. Terms apply.
Jen said it can't be done. Dad said, sounds a bit niche. The agency said, website's live. My CEO pal said, like it, we'll share. My brother said, what if something goes wrong? The insurance website said, your business is fully covered. Investor Tom said, expansion plans look good. The bank said, loans approved. The insurer said, it's more complex now, but nothing we can't sort out. I said, and they said it couldn't be done. Insurance for businesses that know their own mind. Superscript. Customised, effortless, fair.
Much like you, I've got a lot to complain about, like open-toe sandals. Who thought that was a good idea? Who wants to look at toes? Adults who drink squash. Listen, you're a fully grown person. But I just got my Sky TV and broadband and I've got no complaints.
Sky has the lowest number of complaints made to Ofcom for pay TV and fixed-line broadband. To find out more, visit ofcom.org.uk. We're happy because you're happy.
Oh, hang on though. Noisy eaters. They're annoying.
Sky. Believe in better.
Hello folks, I'm Farmer Christmas with another corking deal from Morrison's. Buy 6 or more bottles of wine and champagne and save a whopping 25% with over 300 to choose from. Now that gets my official seal of approval. Morrison's.
Majority of stores subject to availability. Exclusions apply. See online for details. Exclude Scotland. Please drink responsibly.
Life is about sharing those magical moments, and food shouldn't be any different. For over 35 years, Marouche has been perfecting this experience with their delicious food, warm hospitality, and live entertainment. Authentic Lebanese cuisine made the traditional way. Marouche, your family restaurant. Book now at marouche.com.
Do your teeth stop you from smiling and eating? Do you hate the thought of false teeth? Talk to TDC about Smile in a Day dental implants. TDC Smile in a Day dental implants look and work just like real teeth, so you can eat what you want and smile when you want.
I just wish I'd gone to TDC years ago.
Let TDC restore your teeth and your smile. Book your consultation today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
Little Bear will now take your questions.
Little Bear, do you think it's very tasteful?
Yes. Little Bear thinks that the deluxe veggie Wellingtons from $1.79, Scottish salmon side at $9.99, and deluxe stuffed sea bass at $12.99 are all very tasteful. Because Lidl is big on a Christmas you can believe in. Subject to availability, excludes NI.
I'm Julius Caesar, an emperor, not a tradesperson. But if I was, I'd be on Checkatrade. 8 out of 10 homeowners surveyed would choose a tradesperson from Checkatrade over one that isn't. And they guarantee your work for a year. So apply today. Up to £1,000, T's and C's apply.
Our dad has cerebral palsy. Erwin Mitchell got her the help she needed. They gave us hope for Hayley's future. That was the human touch that mattered.
Our legal and financial experts understand the impact of a serious injury. We'll help you receive the best possible support, medical care and rehabilitation. We really get to know you so you can get the most out of life. Erwin Mitchell, the expert hand with the human touch. Find out more at erwinmitchell.com. Authorised and regulated by the Solicitors Regulation Authority.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC.
I'll get back to your calls in a few moments, but LBC's Fraser Knight is here because we've learned through Fraser evidence that private landlords may be discriminating against Ukrainian refugees who are looking for a place to rent here in the UK, and it's adding to concerns of a growing number declaring themselves homeless as their Homes for Ukraine agreements come to an end. Fraser, tell us more. These Homes for Ukraine agreements tended to, obviously people could make their own arrangements around it, but tended to be for 6 months only, didn't they?
That was the initial agreement, yes, was if you were signing up to the Homes for Ukraine scheme, it was for 6 months initially. 6 months, yes, yeah. It was, yeah. But of course, the visas that were offered to the Ukrainians who were coming to the UK are for up to 3 years, and that's really where some of these problems have started to arise. Now, we know that more than 100,000 Ukrainians have come to the UK under this scheme since Russia's invasion began, and now, well, LBC has heard claims that as refugees look for a place of their own to rent as they move out of their host families' homes, some landlords are simply saying no to them. Eugenie, for example, and 4 of her children who I spoke to, they moved from Kherson in the south of Ukraine to Buckinghamshire earlier this year, and with the help of her host Rob, she told me she's faced discrimination from estate agents, all because of her status.
I was surprised because before all people here was very nice with us and we feel very supportive. I think maybe it was just, maybe I did something wrong in this conversation.
They'd be all salesy to you about the property, and then you'd explain the situation later on in the call that actually you are calling on behalf of somebody else, Ukrainian refugees. And I mean, the conversation would go dead, and suddenly they'd say, well, I'll have to call you back. Or I don't think it's suitable for this. I don't think this property is suitable. And that happened, I mean, with me calling multiple times. It wasn't just a one-off. And at that point, I thought, this is unbelievable. And we had, early in the process, agreed to be guarantors.
I think that point that Rob made at the end of that clip there, Sheila, is perhaps the most crucial bit. He'd offered to be a guarantor for Eugenie, which meant even if she couldn't pay the rent, he would step in and make sure the bill was covered. So that is a huge problem. And even still, they say they were met with huge barriers and even just trying to arrange viewings, to be honest. And I put that to the housing lawyer Russell Conway. He's a senior partner at Oliver Fisher Solicitors in North London. And he told me that doing that could potentially be unlawful.
Yeah, well, that's huge discrimination and also really rather stupid on the part of the landlord, because it really is the gold standard to have a tenancy agreement with a tenant and a guarantor guaranteeing payment of the rent. Because if the tenant simply comes on hard times and cannot pay the rent, the landlord can just get a judgment against the guarantor. And remember, the guarantor will be subject to the same credit checks as the tenant, and the landlord won't accept the guarantor unless the guarantor satisfies those credit checks.
And these problems, Sheila, adding to concerns about growing levels of homelessness among Ukrainian refugees at the end of their agreements. Already more than 2,000 have had to declare themselves homeless, adding to already lengthy waiting lists for housing. Well, the government's told me it's still committed to Ukrainian people and it's working with landlord organisations to resolve any issues they have on renting to Ukrainians. But in the meantime, councils have been given funding, £10,500 per refugee, to make sure that they have a roof over their heads. So the government's saying that it's up to the councils to make sure they have a place to stay.
Thank you very much indeed, Fraser. Fraser Knight, LBC's reporter, with that exclusive report. Let's get back to your calls. It's 5 to 3. We'll get to the news in 5 minutes. Darren in Bethnal Green. Hello there.
Hi. I work for housing.
Oh, good. You work in social housing yourself, yeah, just to be clear.
I work in social housing. We do the repairs, we go out, we see what's going on. It's multiple occupancies. Is some of the time is the issue when you've got 6 or 7 people living in one room, and I've seen it myself. You've got there early in the morning because you're looking for damp, as they say. You open the door, you see 6 bodies in a room. The window's not open. The air vent is sealed, so there is no air circulation.
Well, who would seal the air vent?
The tenants, because
Why?
they're cold. They're cold. They can't afford to put their heating on.
An air vent won't affect the temperature that much, will it? Everybody's got air vents in their house.
Unfortunately, it does, because I went in this one room, just said to them, can we just clear it, open the window? I opened the window, and the whole window and the window sill was saturated in water. I ended up going out to the van, getting a load of blue roll, cleaning it all up, just show them, and it's exactly the same as the mould is growing in between the glass and the window sill, where I've treated it with, I don't know if I'm allowed to say what we use, but it's a chemical that's got ammonia in it, but it's called HG mold spray. That is, I have about 9 or 8 bottles in the back of my van at a time. It's the same as when we go into bathrooms. We have people bucket bathing and the floor is saturated.
What do you mean bucket bathing?
So they don't put a curtain, they stand in the bath and they get a bucket and they throw it over there and they wash themselves. So water is actually going on the floor and soaking the floor, so they've got no towels on the floor. So when they ring...
How do you know they're doing that? You're not there when they're bathing, are you?
No, we're not there, but I've been in this game nearly 22 years and I've seen the living for different conditions, different housing associations. And when you go in there, the bucket, there's like a bucket or a bowl inside the bath, and you ask the tenants, are you bathing? And they're going, yeah, we're bathing. So, right, now we know they're bathing. We pull the bath panel off to have a look under the bath. Under the bath is fully soaking wet, so the floor's wet. So this is where you're getting a smell of damp. You go into the other room.
But if it's under the bath, that would suggest that the sealant around the bath isn't sufficiently good.
No, this is what we're looking for. This is when we test the bathroom, we normally, if there's a shower, we soak the shower and we still have the bath panel off to see if there's any water getting underneath. No water getting enough. But when you start lifting the floor and they've got lino, the lino's blown, so the water's sitting under the floor. It's exactly the same.
Darren, I don't doubt that there are instances where more appropriate behaviour by tenants might improve things. But if when you're finding pools of water at the bottom of a window, that what would fix
condensation? That's condensation.
Yeah, I know it is. But what would solve that?
In the windows, there are trickle vents. If the windows have the trickle vents,
if they leave the trickle vents because open, some don't.
Some people cover them over with sellotape, brown tape, black tape, because they say they've got cold coming through the windows. If they leave them open, the air circulates, then they wouldn't get that issue.
Well, I bought a house. When I bought my house, it had been empty for about a year, and I think it had been rented out before. It clearly needed a bit of love, the house, which it's since got and has been renovated. But the point I'm going to make, when I first moved in, the front bay window was in the autumn and winter was dripping with condensation every morning, and I noticed, I was quickly getting it refurbed, and I and the people doing the refurb noticed there was no air brick in the living room at all. So that would account for the condensation, because typically overnight you don't leave your windows open in the front of your house, do you?
No, you don't. Not in the winter time. No. In the summertime when it's nice and warm.
I actually leave it open in the winter time as well, Darren. I'm a freak of nature, but the point is that an air brick should do that job, shouldn't it, in a room? Now, hand on heart, how often do you go into properties where there's no air brick?
I'll say 80% is they're covered up, and 20% has no air brick.
Right.
I went in one today, an elderly lady, lovely lady, very, very lovely. She's got a problem in the kitchen, so we've looked at the kitchen and we've said to her, tell me what your routine is. Get up in the morning, open the window. Okay, cool, that's nice. What she didn't realise is she had a leak under the kitchen sink. What no one knew, it's only because I could smell something and I could hear something hissing. We pulled the back of the kitchen out and she had a leak, and that's where her damp was coming from. And
a leak in the pipes?
Mold leaking on a pipe. Now, a lady like that wasn't too sure what... She didn't want to waste their time. We said to her, you're not wasting their time, let's just have a look, see what's going on. We repaired it, we gave it a thorough clean, and we were going to put a humidifier in there, but we realised it didn't need a humidifier, it just needed air circulating. And under where the boiler was, where the boiler covered, there was an air vent covered up. We uncleaned the vent, and
the ventilation
stopped. How that air vent got blocked up.
Yeah, well, I mean, by some idiot at some point, I suppose. But some of the calls we're getting here from people that they are mystified. They're at a loss as to why their house is the way it is. And I think what you said there about the leak under the floor is interesting. I wonder whether that's contributing to Reader's problem. Our caller in the first hour of the programme, whose housing, he was doing everything he possibly could to ventilate the house that he was in and to dehumidify the house that he was in, and it was still very wet, and it seemed to be coming from underfoot. So let's see if there's a solution there. Thanks, Darren, for your call. It's 3:01.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 3 o'clock, the Transport Secretary says talks with the RMT have been productive, but the union is refusing to call off rail strikes. Its General Secretary, Mick Lynch, says no progress has been made, but a dialogue has begun. More than 40,000 members plan to strike for 48 hours in December and January in a row over pay, conditions and jobs. Mick Lynch says the government needs to make it clear if train operators do have the authority to negotiate with them.
We've also said to them, we need pace in these negotiations. I'm sure the public, the travelling public and the businesses around the country and the economy wants to see this dispute settled in a proper way, but we need pace. 6 months we've been negotiating at least with the train operators, and we have had not one document put across the table.
Official figures have revealed net migration to the UK almost tripled in a year to the highest level since the Second World War. Around 504,000 more people are estimated to have moved here than left in the 12 months to June 2020. It's a sharp rise from the previous year when it was 173,000, blamed partly on the war in Ukraine and the situation in Hong Kong. Labour's Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says the government has mismanaged the immigration system.
They have failed to crack down on the criminal gangs that are making huge profits from putting lives at risk, and they've also allowed a huge backlog to grow in the asylum system because decision-making has collapsed.
344 patients a day were admitted to hospital in England with flu last week, 10 times more than the beginning of winter last year. NHS leaders are warning they're facing the threat of a triple-demic of COVID, flu and huge demand for urgent and emergency care. The situation is said to be particularly bad for children. Labour is calling for government records on awarding of COVID PPE contracts to be released. It's a response to reports Conservative peer Michelle Mone received profits from a business she'd recommended. She denies any connection with the company concerned, while the government says it's waiting for an investigation to finish before commenting. And the King is to spend Christmas Day at Sandringham this year, marking a return to royal tradition. The monarch and the Queen Consort are expected to be joined by their family as they mark their first Christmas since the death of the Queen. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading up 1 point at 74.66. The pound buys $1.21 and €1.16. LBC weather, heavy rain moving eastwards across the UK this afternoon. It'll be followed by sunny spells and blustery showers, a high of 13 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty.
Hello, good afternoon to you. I really feel for so many of you who've been calling since 1 o'clock about the housing conditions that you're living in, and you're all of you making your best efforts to get things fixed and being unable to do so. Each call has had its own individual sort of characteristic, really. A lot of it involves damp and mould, but not all of it, and a lot of it is to do with the frustration of waiting for responses from councils and housing associations or private landlords that never come. Earlier in the programme I took a call from Reader, a gentleman called Reader in Finsbury. He's a single father living in a 1-bedroom flat, and despite doing everything right, like opening windows, turning on the fan and using dehumidifiers, he's still experiencing mould and damp.
Yeah, my son is 9, he has severe asthma, and my oldest one is 16, and he has the allergy of to mold and damp and stuff like that. He's taking medication as well, and I am disabled. I have both physical and mental issue. I sleep on the floor. We live in 1-bedroom flat. It's been like 2.5 years now, maybe more. I knocked all doors, honestly. I went to the MP, the Ombudsman, Citizen Advice, child services, child protection services. I even called the SPC, like animal protection, just to see maybe if they treat us like animals, we'll get a house. It's horrible.
And what are you living in? Describe. I mean, is it a housing association flat? Is it a council flat?
It's a ground floor council flat. One single bedroom, and the living room and the kitchen to the living room. And the 1 bedroom where my kids, all 3 of them, sleep. They got 1 square meter free space, like where they can like sit or study or eat. Or I don't know what. It's 1 square meter. The dump and the smell is horrible. I have been running 3 dehumidifiers in that small space.
Well, that's a lot of electricity as well, isn't it? If you've got dehumidifiers on all the time.
Yes, but my son needs to breathe.
I understand.
And we all need to breathe. And they even thought like recently. Because of the price went up, I thought like doing like some frauds they are doing now, stealing electricity or doing stuff like that. But I can't. I can't. I am law-abiding citizen.
And what is the problem in your flat? I mean, clearly space is a problem, but yeah. Is there mould? Are the windows broken, not working? What's the issue? Is it damp?
No, obviously I am very good with DIY. I have nothing broken. I open the window. I turn the heating on. I paint my bathroom like every month or so just to cover the damp, but nothing work, honestly.
Do you have a window in the bathroom?
I do have a window. I have the air vent with the extractor as well. They're running 24/7. But honestly, if you go to my bathroom now, it's patches, black patches, and condensation as well. Nothing work. Honestly, nothing work.
And why, given that you have dehumidifiers, you open windows, and you have extractor fans, has anyone given you, or do you have any understanding of why it's still so damp?
I have no idea. I think
Is it, if it's a ground floor, is it from the ground?
This all derives from how properties are background ventilation of opening windows, air bricks and triple vent is what most buildings are built with because it's the cheapest method of compliance.
When you say triple vents, what do you mean? The kind of vent you'd see in a bathroom?
Yeah, trickle vents on the windows.
Trickle, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so the purpose of those three things, opening windows, air bricks and trickle vents, is to allow air in from the outside. And of course that's what they do. But what most people disregard is the heat loss that is associated with that method of background ventilation. Okay, and it's the heat loss that affects the internal relative humidity. And when the humidity increases beyond certain thresholds, it will feed the mold growth and it will cause condensation in anywhere in the property. So if, for example, you live in a property where you don't see these problems in summer, but you do in winter, okay, then it's undoubtedly a humidity issue because summer relative humidity always drops because the outdoor air temperature rises, and it always increases in winter because the outdoor air temperature drops, and it's a fundamental law of physics. You know, so when we do the surveys,
So you put your heating on and you create the humidity by doing that?
Well, what happens when you turn on the heating is it heats the air, but the air is then cooled again the moment it passes over a cold surface, like a window. So if you use the heating, then of course you should use the heating. You should try and maintain a decent indoor temperature, but you have absolutely no control of what the surface of a glass window will be when that air passes over it. And when the air temperature drops because of that temperature, the humidity of the air increases in that vicinity.
So, and I know you can't say for sure because you'd have to see the property and be in the property, but in my house where there isn't a problem with mold and damp, I have air bricks, I have windows that I open frequently, and I'm relatively light on the heating generally, just because of...
Right, so Sheila, how many people live in your house?
Just me.
Right, so these issues are always, there's two sides to it. The temperature is one side, but also the amount of moisture going into the air is the other. And all the moisture is coming from the activity, and it scales with occupancy.
Breathing.
Okay, breathing, cooking, showering, all those things. So modern property.
Well, I cook and I shower, obviously, and breathe. I do all those things.
Yes. So basically with ventilation, there are two sides to it. There's the supply ventilation, which is the biggest issue. And there's also extraction ventilation performance. A lot of people think you can just put an extractor fan in a bathroom and it will fix a problem throughout the whole property. That's not the case. And most extractor fans don't actually perform very well. You know, so when we do the surveys, this is actually the most overwhelming cause that we see.
Sorry, the reason I was talking about my house was compare that to Rita, who called from Finsbury, who is dehumidifying, opening windows, and has an extractor fan. Admittedly, has more people in the house than in mine, and his house sounds smaller than mine, or his flat sounds smaller than mine. He just cannot solve the problem.
Yes, well, we see this all the time.
What do you think it is?
Are not a strategic process. A dehumidifier, when it works, is only
an emergency measure.
Like a refrigerator inside the machine. It draws humidity towards it, and then hits the dew point inside the machine, and the water drops out. If you use a dehumidifier when other people are in the house, it's like treading water, because any water it removes is being replaced by the breathing, cooking, showering, and everything.
Better in empty houses,
process.
But what do you suggest if it's not the lack of ventilation from windows and fans, which he clearly uses? What is it likely to be?
So we've been solving these problems for ages. I'm not going to talk about my company or anything, but basically what you have to do is you have to find a way of achieving ventilation without any heat loss or minimizing the heat loss. Okay, and basically it's a change of the ventilation strategy. It involves a retrofit. It's something that we've been doing for years. That is quite poorly understood, but
if we can put you in touch with Rita and sort some kind of connection, would you help? Great.
I'm in Dartford right now because I'm in 5 minutes. I'm going into another. It's our busy time of year. We do mold and condensation surveys all over Britain. I'm doing one in 5 minutes. So, these problems are being suffered right now because it's the time of year for it, and we get very, very busy. The phone rings off the hook, and pretty much every customer I see, they're all told it's something wrong with the walls or it needs insulation. And in fact, it's actually more to do with the ventilation performance.
Right, and you can talk to them, anyone, about how they can better ventilate that house. Okay.
I mean, just so you know, Sheila, on the 6th of December, I'm meeting my MP at Portcullis House to talk about this. And I've got a colleague who's dealing with, who actually is liaising with Mr. Gove's group as well.
Oh, good. Well, we will, Andrew, I need to leave it there just for now, but we will keep in touch with you, definitely, because I think it's important that people know this. We all need to, you know, particularly if you've got councils who won't help you, but people need to know how they can best help themselves while they're waiting for councils to help them. Thank you, Andrew. I want to do a quick word with Ben Kentish, LBC's Westminster editor, before I go to the news headlines at 3:30. Ben, the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper, has met with Mick Lynch of the RMT. What news?
Well, Sheila, it sounds like it went surprisingly well. That seems to be the verdict of both sides. Mick Lynch, the General Secretary of the RMT, calling the meeting positive and constructive, and Mark Harper, in the last half an hour or so, issuing a statement also saying that he'd had a constructive meeting, Mick Lynch, where they had an honest and open conversation about the serious challenges facing the railway. Mark Harper continuing, Sheila, by saying they have common ground and need to work together to ensure our railway industry thrives. Even more positive note from the new Transport Secretary. He says there is a deal to be done, and I believe that we will get there. Now, that's a lot of warm words, Sheila. Of course, we have heard similar in the past, but it is notably a different tone from the one adopted by his predecessor, Grant Shapps, as Transport Secretary. Mick Lynch accusing Grant Shapps today of bellicose nonsense, and saying that Mark Harper has notably shifted the tone and shifted the conversation on. I think it's not just about words, Sheila, it's about actions too. You'll remember Grant Shapps pointedly refused to even meet with the unions. Mark Harper has now met face-to-face with Mick Lynch within his first weeks in office, and has said that he sees his role as acting as a facilitator in those discussions, those negotiations between the unions and the train operating companies, in a way that Grant Shapps effectively said, nothing to do with me, Gov. And that's important because what's been clear for some time now is the train operating companies, the employers, they believe that they need approval, they need a change in mandate from the government if they are to reach some sort of resolution with the unions on this. Even Mick Lynch today said he lost confidence that the people they're negotiating with have the authority to make the changes, or some of the changes, that he and his union are demanding. So the fact that Mark Harper has said very clearly that he wants to be much more involved in these discussions does bode well, I think, when it comes to the prospect, and it is just a prospect at this point in time, of some sort of settlement to this ongoing row, which of course is going to cause huge disruption for passengers and commuters and travellers in the run-up to Christmas, Sheila.
Thank you, Ben. Good to hear. Ben Kentish, LBC's Westminster editor. Got time for a quick call, actually, before 3:30. Michael has called from Brentwood. Hello, Michael.
Hello there, Sheila.
You're a surveyor?
Yes. And it's interesting because it was interesting in hearing Andrew's contribution before, but what we are worried in the housing association sector is we think that this winter is going to be really bad for condensation related mould, simply because so many of our tenants will slip into fuel poverty and they won't be able to afford to run the heating.
And that makes condensation worse, does it?
Yes, yeah, because Andrew was fairly good in his assessment of saying that obviously ventilation is important and moisture projection is important, but there is a temperature at which, and it depends on how much moisture there is, but there is a temperature at which the air can no longer contain the moisture and it has to release it. It's called the dew point. And unfortunately, if you are unable to afford to heat your property to above the dew point for that situation, then you will get condensation.
Even if you ventilate the room?
Even if you ventilate, if you ventilate the room, it's the two factors. It's balancing the amount of moisture with the temperature. So obviously, if we say at the dew point, at that point, the air can cope with X amount of moisture. If you then increase the amount of moisture, it can't cope and it has to liberate it. If you reduce the temperature, it can't cope and has to liberate it. But if at that point you reduce the moisture, that's fine.
By opening a window.
Yeah, and if you increase the temperature, then that's fine as well. And so we think that fuel property
is going to make it worse.
It's going to make it worse. And for us, as a responsible housing provider, there's such a frustration because we
is your housing association trying to educate people in the homes about this so that they know? Yeah, oh well, that's good. Well, I've been educated myself over the past 3 hours, so that's important, and we'll certainly talk more about that. Michael, thank you, Michael, in Brentwood. It's 3:31. Let's get some headlines from Amelia Cox.
Planned rail strikes for next month and in January will still go ahead despite a positive first meeting between the RMT and Transport Secretary. The union's General Secretary says no progress has been made, but a dialogue has started. The number of people being treated for flu in hospital in England is 10 times higher than at the same time last year. An average of 344 patients a day were admitted last week. And net migration to the UK has almost tripled in the 12 months until June. It's been partly blamed on the war in Ukraine and the situation in Hong Kong. LBC weather, heavy rain moving eastwards across the UK this afternoon. It'll be followed by sunny spells and blustery showers, a high of 13 degrees.
This is LBC.
I'm Julius Caesar, an emperor, not a tradesperson. But if I was, I'd be on Checkatrade. 8 out of 10 homeowners surveyed would choose a tradesperson from Checkatrade over one that isn't. And they guarantee your work for a year. So apply today. Up to £1,000, T's and C's apply.
To save money, I was told to cut back on takeaways. Beans on burnt toast again? I'll go Labara Sim instead.
Switching to Labara could save you over £10 a month, allowing you to keep doing some of the things you love, plus a reliable network and excellent customer service. So, why not make the smart choice today? Search Labara Switch and Save.
Pizza's here!
Saving based on survey of over 15,000 new Labara customers, rated excellent on Trustpilot. Terms apply.
Save up to £35 in the Ancestry DNA Cyber Sale and discover the people, places and journeys that led to you, all for our lowest price of the year. Buy your Ancestry DNA kit today from just £49, plus shipping at $9.99. Offer ends 29th November.
As a Bolt driver, I work hard. I work long hours, getting people where they need to be, from A to B. So, at the end of the day, I expect a fair deal from my employer. I deserve better.
Bolt drivers, following the successful Uber claim, be part of the fight for the compensation and workers' rights you deserve. Join Lee Day's Bolt Drivers Claim today. Visit leeday.co.uk/boltclaim or text CLAIM to 82727.
At Raging Bull Snacks, we use only the finest natural ingredients and traditional skills to craft our award-winning jerky and biltong. Wonderfully spiced and beautifully tender, our biltong and jerky is rich in natural protein, low in carbs, and utterly delicious. The perfect snack in a pack to help fuel life's adventures.
Visit RagingBullSnacks.com and enjoy 15% off your first order. Raging Bull Snacks, made without compromise.
Calling all landlords and developers. Is your residential building empty? Maybe it's half full. Introducing FineFair, the rent guarantee company. FineFair will guarantee your rent for 1 to 5 years with no commission or management fees. Join thousands of owners already guaranteeing their rent through FineFair. For more information, call FineFair on 0208 554 0500 or visit us at finefair.com. Subject to acceptance, terms apply.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I'll get back to your calls and your texts and tweets in just a moment. Theo's here first. Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. Just to catch up on a couple of politics stories out there today. Fire away, Theo.
Let's start with Ofgem's announcement, Sheila, that the energy price cap is going up to more than £4,200. Now, of course, many people might shrug their shoulders. They might say, well, in actual fact, we've now got the energy price guarantee, which caps our bills for the next 6 months at least at £2,500. Why should we be worried? However, I've been speaking to Cornwall Insight. Now, this is an organisation, a group of analysts, Sheila, which has looked at the energy price since the war in Ukraine began, and they've told me that there has been a significant spike in the energy price, the wholesale price of energy last week, around £4 billion. That adds from 38 to 42 billion pounds on top of the bill for the government in terms of providing that energy price guarantee for consumers to keep their energy bills down within reason. Now, Robert Buckley from Cornwall Insight told me this will have a knock-on impact in terms of the final bill for the energy price guarantee for the taxpayer.
So the way that things are looking with our forecast for the Ofgem's price cap are that it should come down, and it should come down to about £3,300 equivalent by the end of the year. That obviously is still above the £3,000 level that the energy price guarantee is going to go to.
That's at the end of 2023, is it?
2023, that's correct.
So it should come down to about £3,300, but that's still
correct.
That's still above the price guarantee of.
It is still above the price guarantee. Yes, it is, and I think that just underlines that the markets look very difficult for a while yet, unfortunately.
Now, last week, Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, Sheila, said that beyond the final 18 months, of course, when the energy price guarantee will go up to £3,000, so going into the middle of 2024, it would be impossible for any government to continue to guarantee that energy prices can stay low by providing a subsidy such as the one that they put in place last month. But as Mr. Buckley told me, that could have a significant impact on consumers.
You also hope that as people get more used to these prices, they get more resilient to it and are able to adapt. What you don't want is forced adaptation, so people going colder over winter or businesses closing down. So yeah, it's a big political call.
It is. It's an ongoing political call, really, isn't it, Theo, that one? It's not going to go away anytime soon. And can I ask you about the story that broke in The Guardian this morning by the journalist David Conn, to do with Michelle Mone and her husband, the peer Michelle Mone and her husband?
Yes, to think back to last year, Baroness Mone was asked about whether she had benefited from a contract provided to a company called MedPro, which was run by her husband to provide, well, it was value of which was about £200 million, and was to provide COVID-19 PPE, personal protective equipment, and that kicked in the very start of the pandemic, and she said that she had no financial benefit from it, and that's why it didn't appear in her financial register of interest as a peer in the House of Lords. Well, now David Conn, the Guardian journalist, has broken quite an extraordinary exclusive story today, where he's got hold of records from the bank HSBC, which allege that Michelle Mone benefited to the tune, and her two children benefited to the tune of £29 million. Now, this was raised in the House of Commons by Angela Rayner, the deputy leader of the Labour Party.
Can you say now what due diligence was performed in awarding the MedPro contract? Mr. Speaker, today's reports concern just one single case, but this government has written off £10 billion alone in PPE that was deemed unfit for use, unusable, overpriced or undelivered. Worse, ministers appear to have learnt no lessons and have no shame. As families struggle to make ends meet, taxpayers will spend £700,000 a day on the storage of inadequate PPE.
Now, that was an urgent question to the Cabinet Office Minister, Neil O'Brien. And in reply, Mr. O'Brien said that, at the moment at least, a complaint that they were dealing with, an investigation they were dealing with over the value of that contract to MedPro had yet to be resolved.
The Honourable Lady asked two main sorts of questions. One is, what are we doing on PP MedPro? It's been widely reported, Mr. Speaker, that it had an underperforming contract, and let me set out what we do in those cases. The first step is to send a letter before action, which outlines a claim for damages. and that is then followed by litigation in the event that a satisfactory agreement has not been reached. And to answer the Honourable Lady's question directly, we haven't got to a point where a satisfactory agreement has been reached at this stage.
And Theo, is there any indication yet as to what will flow from this? I mean, clearly attempts in Parliament to put questions about it, but do we know yet what might flow from this?
Well, we know there is an investigation, as Neil O'Brien was saying there, where the government is looking at the value of that contract provided to MedPro. And of course, there could be a subsequent investigation, should Labour demand one formally, into whether Michelle Mone has fulfilled her obligations to under the Financial Register of Interest. But in the short term, at least, it all hinges on that investigation dispute, if you call it what you will, between the government and MedPro, whereas you heard there from Neil O'Brien, the Cabinet Office Minister, they've yet to reach a resolution as to the value of that contract and what was provided.
Thank you, Theo. Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. Let me get back to calls, try and squeeze in as many as I can between now and 4. We've been talking for 3 hours now, into our third hour, talking about the housing conditions you are facing, and if you work in a housing association or council, it's been good to hear from you as well with your perspective on things. Julie has called from Manchester. Hi.
Hi, Julie. Hi. Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
Yes, I mean, everybody talks about the landlords or housing association not looking after the tenants and so on and so forth. I only own one property, and it's rented to a professional lady who has been there for a number of years. But honestly, every time something is wrong, she would phone, there's a missed call, and I try to get hold of her, and it goes on for a month or so. And then if there is a problem, like, for example, we had a problem with the heating due to her covering up a storage heater, so it's packed up. It's taken me 6 weeks to get to the bottom of it. That can I come and sort it out? Can I get an engineer? It has to be ordered, the parts. Winter is coming.
She didn't let you into the property, or didn't cooperate with you?
She basically pretends that she's busy or have not done it, or, you know.
Maybe she is busy.
Pardon me?
Maybe she is busy.
But she works from home, so how am I supposed to sort this out if I cannot have access, if she would not return the call, if she would not reply to emails? And it goes on and on and on. And then, for example, we had another issue, the water coming from the bathroom to the flat below.
Yeah.
When I phone her, I find out that the management company phones and says, this is what's happening. I try to phone, there is no reply, there is no response. Then the people downstairs tell me that her boyfriend, which I don't even know she had a boyfriend who's living in there, because every time I go in there, there's a few pair of men's shoes there.
He might not live there.
Well, not according to the neighbours.
He does live there.
Well, yes. So you see, there is a lot of problem with even professional people who get paid more than me a month.
Yeah.
Right? I have one property that I let. I'm not a big earner or what have you, and that was due to getting married and so on and so forth. And if there is any problem, it's impossible to get it sorted out.
That sounds like a very particular problem, though, in your case, doesn't it, Julie? Like the relationship between you and the tenant.
But the relationship is brilliant. When we meet, she's fantastic. We have a good chat. We finally sort it out. But to actually physically have honesty and, you know, transparent relationship, it doesn't work. And if there is any issues, hanging wet clothes on the curtain rails, having clothes thrown all over the place, that, you know, there's not hoovering the place, you know, that it gets dusty, then you get mold if there's dust and winter damp. But it's myriad of
does she have
the tenant?
Is there a clothes dryer in the house, or just a
no, just a washing machine?
Right.
But you know, just to hang them up on the buying them even a clothes dryer would not solve the problem, because I have to spend money on electricity, and I'm thinking, well, I'm sorry, you earn 3 times as much as me. You're a professional person. So if you're not going to spend the money, and if I have bought one of these big kind of a cylinder thing that you connected to the because there's no room to put another dryer there, and the washing machine is fairly new, so she won't even do that.
Well, it sounds like you've got to have some conversations, I think, Julie, to try and sort that out. It's you need to have some kind of communication, don't you? Functional communication between yourself and the tenant, for sure. Thank you, Julie, for your call. It's 3:46.
Coming up at 4 on LBC, Tom Swarbrick.
A former MI6 chief says runaway ISIS bride Shamima Begum poses more of a threat to UK security in Syria than she would back here. Really?
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
Much like you, I've got a lot to complain about, like open-toe sandals. Who thought that was a good idea? Who wants to look at toes? Adults who drink squash. Listen, you're a fully grown person. But I just got my Sky TV and broadband and I've got no complaints.
Sky has the lowest number of complaints made to Ofcom for paid TV and fixed-line broadband. To find out more, visit ofcom.org.uk. We're happy because you're happy.
Oh, hang on though. Noisy eaters. They're annoying.
Sky. Believe in better.
I'm Julius Caesar, an emperor, not a tradesperson. But if I was, I'd be on Checkatrade. 8 out of 10 homeowners surveyed would choose a tradesperson from Checkatrade over one that isn't. And they guarantee your work for a year. So apply today. Up to £1,000, T's and C's apply.
Hello, I'm Andrew from Network Rail with some important news if you're travelling by train this Christmas and New Year. Most of the rail network remains open, but some train services will be affected as we make improvements to the railway. The affected dates are from Sunday the 25th of December until Monday the 2nd of January. So, be in the know before you go. Please check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/Christmas. Thank you.
1, 2. Okay, let's start with cool driving sounds, dramatic music, a woman whispers, and then a hawk.
Let's keep it simple. Just like the affordable Dacia Sandero, packed with everything you need and nothing you don't. You control your maps and music hands-free with your smartphone through our clever media control app. Because why fork out for a big flashy screen when you've already got one in your pocket? Dacia. Good thinking. Discover more at dacia.co.uk. Subject to availability. Compatible device required.
Through, he's weaving his way round. This is the moment. They've been waiting all year for this. He approaches!
At Lidl, we're big on all the big games, with tasty snacks and drinks like our party time selection from £1.49, Budweiser chili and lime chicken wings for £3.99, and craft beers per can from 99p. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
Rising energy prices are affecting our cost of living more than ever before. But you could make your home warmer, greener, and cheaper to run with the Mayor of London's Warmer Homes programme. If you earn less than £20,000 after housing costs or receive means-tested benefits and own or rent your home, you could get up to £25,000 worth of free energy improvements. Find out if you or someone you know is eligible today. Search Warmer Homes London.
Save up to £35 in the Ancestry DNA Cyber Sale and discover the people, places and journeys that led to you. All for our lowest price of the year. Buy your Ancestry DNA kit today from just £49, plus shipping at £9.99. Offer ends 29th November.
Breathless after minor physical activity? Feeling exhausted with swollen ankles? It could be a potential symptom of heart failure. Speak to your GP, who might suggest a simple blood test to help diagnose it or rule it out.
Pumping Marvellous's Beat HF campaign and Fighting Failure from Novartis are working together to raise awareness of heart failure. Find out more at pumpingmarvellous.org.
Sponsored and funded with editorial input by Novartis UK.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day, farmers will use augmented reality to monitor the health of their soil and run irrigation simulations to help ensure the best yields. And urban planners will model traffic solutions in the metaverse to help decrease commute times, paving the way for less congested cities. The metaverse may be virtual, but the impact will be real. Learn more about what Meta is building for the metaverse at meta.com/metaverseimpact/EN.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Sheila Fogarty.
Text that came in from Jane. I feel very fortunate. I'm in social housing with the Wrekin Housing Group in Shropshire. My 3-bed semi is dates from around 1950. This year they've installed a beautiful new kitchen and bathroom. My windows and doors are relatively new. And she goes on to say the insulation is fantastic, and if I have an issue, they come out to me the same day for an emergency, on the next day or two for other problems. I feel so upset for families experiencing these problems, but not surprised, says Sue. Well, Sue, it's good to hear that some housing associations are getting it right, and I don't doubt that some of them are, but clearly plenty of them and councils, for whatever reason, are not getting it right. Marie says, just caught the last 20 minutes of the programme and saddened that someone has said all private landlords don't care. Well, if a caller said that, I'm sorry for not correcting that, because clearly some do. Anyway, Marie, I certainly wouldn't say that. Marie says, we've put ventilators on all the windows in an apartment that we rent out to stop the damp, and also we've not put the rent up for 3 years despite the massive hikes in our mortgage payments. She goes on to say, so that we can help our tenants as much as possible, please let people know we are not all bad. Thanks, says Marie. Well, you're not all bad. I think we know that. Lee has called from Camden. Hi, Lee.
Hi there, Sheila. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good. Thank you very much for having me, first time caller, but really frustrated hearing everyone else calling in, and I just wanted to share my experience.
Yes.
I have a property that forms part of a freehold retained by Camden Council. I actually moved out in April 2021 following 3 leaks, which I had to do all the remedial works myself. But the structure of the building started moving, and trying to get the council to appoint a structural surveyor was near on impossible, and to date we're still there. And I work in property. I'm a RIC surveyor. I'm also part of facilities management, so I know a lot about buildings. And my frustration comes from, part of it is regulation. So local authorities are bound by the procurement regulations 2015, which means they award contracts to rather large contractors. Now, I've got a document in front of me. Camden awarded one this year for £11 million to a company that I will keep nameless. And so where they're outsourcing all of these repairs, there's literally a breakdown between, tenants or leaseholders reporting issues, contractors going to site on agreed rate, saying that they've either done a job or that there's follow-up works that are subject to quotes.
So things get lost in translation.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest problem. There is a skills gap within the local authorities and the housing associations. You've got the contractors trying their hardest to do a good job, but because they're a third party, trying to get a local authority to approve works, it is literally near on impossible. It's taken me 18 months to finally get a surveyor appointed by the local authority to come down with a loss adjuster to inspect my property. But for 18 months, it's sat empty. I'm paying a mortgage. I could sell it, I could rent it, but right now I can't because I'm in dispute.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I had to, before I moved out, I had to start replacing windows, which technically put me in breach of lease. But that's because they were rotting, they were falling out of the frame. So either one would have allowed me to fall through, or at some point would have hit someone walking around in the front or rear garden. And local authorities just at the moment don't really know what to do. They're awarding these contracts, they're doing Section 20 consultation, they're complying with regulations from 2015, but that's what's making them fall short.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to come at this from, aren't there? And yours is a different one again. Thanks very much, Lee. Let's talk to Ray in Windsor. Ray, hi.
Hi, Sheila. Hi. Yeah, I was quite intrigued with your last caller. He's got it. He's down on the head, really. I'm a small business works contractor looking after residential properties in the Surrey and Windsor, Hampshire areas, and we face this every day of the week. We go on site, we were asked to attend, and some of the conditions are quite appalling. There's water ingress or there's mould. But one of the simple things is with that, we can easily, all of us can, or contractors can, identify that water through its simple pH testing, litmus testing, to see whether it's rainwater or whether it's a leak and ingress. So once we've done that, but he's actually right, he's compiling that report, and when you send the reports back in, or you quote, it gets lost in the system, because they're all trying to, and there isn't such a thing as, I don't think there's many bad private owners out there. I just think, they've all got to manage their costs. But when it comes to multinationals that are all going to, they've got large contracts being awarded to multinationals.
On that, Lee, Ray, on that, yes, private landlords have to manage their costs. But the reality is that when somebody takes on that flat, there is an agreement, and they're taking on that flat on that agreement with the flat in a particular condition. If that condition deteriorates or something breaks, it is absolutely the responsibility of the landlord to fix that.
No, you're
barring
absolutely right,
malicious action, on the part of the tenant.
I mean, there is responsibilities, and we know that a lot of water ingress can be caused by all sorts of, bad ventilation, shutting off.
I had some a couple of years ago in my bathroom wall, my outside bathroom wall, and it was because some of the lime needed replacing on the outside bricks, plain and simple.
Simple fixes, but also there is a responsibility for occupiers to manage ventilations within inside the building by not shutting off the trickle vents and not putting paper into gaps and allow. But the reality of life is that the big multinationals need to break down these multi-million-pound contracts they award, go back to offering local contractors the opportunity under Section 20s to be able to tender for works on a localised basis where you get that customer care and service because you can talk to Mary or Fred and understand what they have suffered from.
Rather than these huge, great companies having big contracts, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly that. And but more importantly, we've got EPCs on properties now, which is statutory in law that every house has to have an EPC. Well, why not have the same kind of certification for a property that's either being rented or sold, that it's gone through the process of having any leakage, any signs of mould or growth, because it is such a serious subject. Yeah. It's got worse over the last 15 years because houses are not developed that way, not built that way. But now we're all changing. If a house heating system draws water in.
But also, if a house changes from being a house to being 3 flats, say,
correct.
That change has to reflect what's going to be happening in it, doesn't it? It can't just be you go that room, you go that room, you go that room.
No, you can't. Yeah. No. There needs to be legislation involved, at source, so that a new tenant and selling a new property, that due diligence has been done, the certification that says yes, this property's been checked for all the issues that may have been there historically, but rechecked again. Every time.
Do you hold out much hope, Dan? Ray. Sorry, I've called you all kinds of names. It's all different names in front of me. Ray. I think I might just start calling you mate, just to avoid anyone. I don't call anybody mate, but there you go. I'm getting increasingly sort of pessimistic about whether these the sort of intractable problems will ever get addressed.
It takes what's happening now, unfortunately, and I feel for the poor family and their loss. It takes something like that for us to start to look at, and your show today, it takes listeners and everybody to start to say, well, this has to change.
I cannot tell you how many calls came in. It was instant. Within 5 minutes, the board was full, and it never stopped being full throughout the 3 hours. So that's where the need is out there, isn't it? People want to be heard.
I'm ready to work. Yeah. I'm boots on the ground. We're ready to go. But the hoops that we have to go through, that we could be one of 20 contractors going to the same site looking at the same thing, doing the same evaluations, putting the same quotes in, yet it falls on whether it's because the tenants don't have insufficient funds to be able to put it through, with local councils and local authorities have insufficient funds or whatever. It's not the want of desire of the industry or lack of skills within the industry. We're all keen to do this. We understand the problems. We all have expertise within our groups to evaluate and to find find and fix. But you there needs to be a wake up from the government to say, you need to have some policy in this. You need to make somebody, but it needs to be a shared.
Well, it can only really be changed fundamentally with leadership from government, can't it? Which hopefully Michael Gove can muster for us, and especially for the people who are suffering. Thanks, Ray, for your call, Ray in Windsor. That's it from me for today. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player, where you'll also find all of LBC's shows to catch up on, and you'll be able to stay up to date with all the latest news from LBC as well. Download Global Player for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 6 on LBC, it's Andrew Marr, but now Tom Swarbrick.
Sheila, thank you very much indeed. Yes, afternoon all. Welcome to the show. At 4 o'clock.
If they were to come to the gates right now and say whoever doesn't join us, we'll kill them, I would rather die. I would rather die than go back to ISIS.
A former MI6 chief says runaway ISIS bride Shamima Begum poses more of a threat to UK security in Syria than she would back here.
Where they pose any threat to this country, I will do everything in my power to prevent their return.
An immigration court is hearing an appeal against the government's decision to strip her of her British citizenship. The former head of global counter-terrorism at MI6 told the hearing that leaving her and other Brits in Syrian camps is likely to be significantly more dangerous to our national security than bringing them back here to be prosecuted and de-radicalised. Do you have faith that the security services here could do that, or is Syria actually the best place to leave them?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation, this is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 4 o'clock, the RMT has refused to call off rail strikes in December and January, despite a productive meeting with the Transport Secretary. The union's General Secretary, Mick Lynch, says there is no offer on the table in the row over pay, jobs and conditions. Royal Mail workers have started a 48-hour walkout today, while teachers in Scotland are also on strike. They're after a 10% pay rise, which teacher Craig Duffy thinks in the current climate is reasonable.
It's not actually a pay rise that we're asking for, it's to not be giving a pay cut. Inflation's currently sitting at just over 11%. 10% would still be a 1% real terms pay cut, which would add to the erosion of teachers' pays, which has taken place since 2007.
The war in Ukraine is being partly blamed for a large rise in net migration to the UK in the 12 months to June. Around 504,000 more people are estimated to have moved to the UK than left the country. That's up sharply from 173,000 the year before. NHS leaders in England are warning the health service faces the threat of a triple-demic of COVID, flu and huge demand for emergency care. Health service figures show 344 patients a day were admitted to hospital with flu last week. That's 10 times higher than at the start of winter last year. Professor Stephen Powis is the National Director of NHS England.
Because we haven't seen flu for a couple of years, we do expect, like other countries like Australia, that we are likely to see perhaps an earlier wave of flu, perhaps in December rather than January, and perhaps more cases than we've seen in recent winters before the pandemic.
The Prime Minister says he still has full confidence in Dominic Raab, despite further allegations of bullying. A number of former private secretaries to the Deputy Prime Minister are expected to lodge formal complaints against him. He says he's always confident he acted professionally. And Uruguay and South Korea have played out a goalless draw in their opening match at the World Cup. Switzerland beat Cameroon 1-0 this morning. Meanwhile, a scan on Harry Kane's ankle has cleared him to play for England against the US tomorrow. In the city, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading up 2 points at 74.68. The pound buys $1.21 and €1.16. LBC weather, largely clear in the southeast tonight. Heavy blustery showers for the north and west, lows of 5. Long spells of sunshine in the south and east tomorrow. Showers for the north and west, highs of 12 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Tom Swarbrick.
Just gone 4. Hello, afternoon, welcome to the show. Tom Swarbrick at Drive here on LBC. Hope we find you very well. Coming up,
start holding them to account, start working with us to fix this. This is too important to the UK economy to leave it in this mess.
The boss of the RMT has met the government and it's gone so well that the national strike is now definitely happening. Meanwhile, business leaders in Manchester say there has been a total collapse in confidence in the train service. We'll discuss. Also,
why would a foreign government want to be interested in what I'm up to? My shopping.
Who watches the watchers, even if you're just shopping? The security minister has been urged to take action to roll back the number of Chinese state-owned CCTV cameras around the country. There are over 1 million of them, so chances are they're watching you right now. Details to come.
Call 0345 60 60 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
afternoon to you. An immigration judge is hearing an appeal being made about the decision of the British government to strip Shamima Begum of her British citizenship. As you know, she ran away with her friends, aged 15, to join ISIS in Syria and is now stuck in a refugee camp in the country, having been rejected by Britain on the grounds that she also could have Bangladeshi citizenship as well. It's subsequently become clear that the security services of Canada knew she'd been taken across the border into Syria, and there are reports that the security services here were told, even as the Met launched a manhunt for the girls. Sajid Javid, as Home Secretary, stripped her of her citizenship on the grounds of national security, but today the hearing was given a different view from some former senior bosses at MI6. Richard Barrett, the former director of global counterterrorism at MI6, has now described MI5's assessment of Miss Begum's national security risk as, quotes, superficial and inadequate. This was a report prepared for Miss Begum's legal team. He wrote that it was seriously open to doubt that a pregnant teenage girl, as Miss Begum was when she sort of resurfaced in 2019, presented a physical threat so great as to overwhelm the resources of the state. He continued, she has been deprived of her citizenship as an individual without any explanation of how a giggly and impressionable member of a group of schoolgirls might have turned into a singular and uncontrollable monster. He says, from a national security perspective, refusing to repatriate individuals who now find themselves in camps in Syria is likely to be significantly more dangerous in the medium to long term than repatriating them and subjecting them to prosecution, rehabilitation, and reintegration. He says detainees in the camps, such as Ms. Begum, will only become more resentful towards Britain if they remain detained without charge, suffering from malnutrition and lack of health services, becoming further psychologically damaged each day. By contrast, de-radicalisation and disengagement programmes run to tackle extremism in the UK, such as Prevent, he says, have been found to generally work. The report concluded the view that the legal, judicial and security systems in the UK would be unable to cope with Miss Begum defies the standards that have been built and maintained over many years. It presents a poor reflection and lack of statesmanship on the world stage and domestically maligns all the competent and diligent professionals involved. Do you think that's true? That the decision to leave her there relies on the notion that she is a security risk, and she might be, and the security risk posed by a single, as in lone, 23-year-old woman is said to be great enough to mean that the security services and the police, upon whom we spend billions, would find it too difficult to deal with. What does it say about those services' ability to prosecute, to manage, to de-radicalise a lone 23-year-old woman? Or you might think that the trust in those kinds of programs, de-radicalisation in this country, is misplaced. Does it worth the effort to do that for her when, in theory, she could just be left in Syria, even if leaving her in Syria, according to this former boss at MI6, might actually be riskier to us than bringing her and others like her back? 0345 6060 973. Do you believe that she and others who ended up travelling to Syria would be more of a risk to us being left in Syria than being brought back to Britain? 0345 6060 973. David Davis is Conservative MP for Holton Price and Howden, former Cabinet Minister, and is Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Trafficked Britons. Thank you for coming on the programme, Mr. Davis. I wonder, first of all, what you make of this former MI6 boss's assessment.
Well, I think he's exactly right. I know him actually. I met him, but and he's a very capable man. He was the head of. He was not just MI6. He was the head of their counterterrorism, the global counterterrorism operation. A couple of extra facts to add to your account, Tom, and that is that the Canadian Secret Intelligence Service, their equivalent of MI6, didn't just know about this. It was one of their agents who actually did the trafficking. You know, this is a massive scandal in Canada. I think they're going to have an inquiry on it, public inquiry on it. So that's first thing. And as I say, it's hard to believe that if they knew, they weren't, talking to our own agencies. These operations, these MI6 and the CIA and the CSIS, which is the Canadian Secret Service, all talk to each other on an hour-by-hour basis on some of these issues. So it's very, very hard to believe we didn't know. Also, back in 2015, I think the current head of the Met, the head of counterterrorism at the time, said, she's probably to come back because there is no terrorist threat from her. We will not be charging her with a terrorist offence. So all of this is incredibly inconsistent with the decision that was taken by Sajid Javid at the time. He was the Home Secretary at the time, and no doubt on advice. I mean, I don't imagine he just made it up on his own. It's completely inconsistent with the idea that this was a risk to us. Indeed, every other country, every other part of the Western Alliance, other than Canada and ourselves, have brought back their equivalents of Shamima Begum and the other girls that were trafficked. That's the right word. Trafficked out there when they were 15-year-olds. And when she got there, within weeks, I think less than 3 weeks, she had been married to an ISIS fighter. Here, we would call that something else. But out there, she's married, and of course she has.
Well, let me pick up on 2 points. The first is about the use of the word trafficked.
Yeah.
They went there of their own volition. They had to get in a specific way through the use of what turned out to be an agent of the Canadian Secret Intelligence Service. But is that truly being trafficked? They weren't trafficked of their own, out of their own volition.
Look, they're wide-eyed 15-year-olds, possibly taken in by some pseudo-glamour of the fight out in Syria. But they're 15-year-olds. If in any circumstances somebody had picked them up in Britain and taken them to another part of Britain, and then within a week or two they were the sex partner of somebody else, it would be a crime here, the way they were handled. And yet, not our agencies, but Canadian agencies, couldn't just know it. They were party to making it happen. So you pick their own word. I don't care about the word. The simple truth is, a 15-year-old is below the age of criminal consent on these things. We do have,
but not below the age of criminal responsibility.
No, but we do have a reason for calling people children and calling other people adults. Sure. And these were children. There's no two ways about it. My daughters, when they were 15, were children, and they acted like children.
And then there's the point about the risk, David.
Yeah, that's the other point.
Because we don't know precisely what she did whilst out in Syria as part of ISIS. She says, I was merely a bride and I did the kinds of things that women were told that they had to do in the home and what have you. But the reality is quite a lot else could have gone on, which we're not going to be able to know unless evidence is brought forward. It's going to therefore be quite hard to bring a prosecution. So would we not be bringing over someone that we're not quite sure about their threat status to a prosecution that we're not sure would actually be able to happen, and eventually try and reintegrate them into society?
One of the difficulties about this, Tom, is that all of the information is a bit susceptible to being bent one way or the other. So let me give you another example. At various times, this young lady, Shamima Begum, has said pro-ISIS things.
Yes.
Now, I don't think anybody would dispute that. But when she did it, she was in the midst of a lot of very violent ISIS fighters, or in camps which themselves are violent. I was due to go out and actually see her and the other young women in Syria about 4 weeks ago, but the leadership contest got in the way and so on. But one of the things that everybody said to me is, it's dangerous, don't go. Roj Camp, ROJ, Roj Camp is a dangerous place for everyone. And of course, it's dangerous for them. That's the point. They're under threat all the time. But to come back to the security assessment, so my point is the data in any direction is very hard to pick apart. But the thing is, every other country, other than ourselves and Canada, are doing it. More than that, I actually had a visit from a senior member of the security side of the America's Department of State, the U.S. Department of State. I guess it's about 6 months to a year ago now, asking me whether I could persuade the government to bring back these young women.
The pressure on the NHS, by treating people here rather than taking them to hospital.
Yeah, I mean, people used to see their friend drunk, laying on the floor, think they need to go to hospital, call an ambulance, which is an extortionate amount of money to call an ambulance out. Then they would go to A&E, often with a group of friends there who may be quite rowdy, causing issues, and really they just needed a little bit of time and a safe space to sober up. Then we can ensure they get home safely.
Okay. Has it changed over the 14 years? I don't know. You've not been with them 14 years, have you, Val?
No, I've been with them about 12 years now.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, things have changed. It used to be everyone's drunk. The type of drugs, unfortunately, that people take has differed. At the start, it would tend to be ecstasy, MDMA. It now tends to be things like ketamine, which is a particularly nasty drug. We do see a lot of that. We also see a lot of people suffering mental health crisis. And our volunteers have had extra training in order to be able to assist people in that circumstance.
What keeps you and the team going? Because do you not feel as if you're fighting almost a losing battle?
Absolutely not, no. We really enjoy what we do. It's very satisfying what we do, and we love knowing that we're going out there and helping make Maidstone a very safe place to go and have a night out.
And Nigel mentioned, we're in the middle of the World Cup at the moment. Does that bring certain challenges
Absolutely,
to you?
yeah. Oh my goodness, yes. The afternoon games, people will be drinking much earlier than maybe they would in town. So of course by the time we rock up at 9:30, then they're well on the way to being extremely drunk. And then we have to try and assist them and make sure that they get home safely. So yeah, there's a lot of the important games going to be on Saturday nights as well. So it's going to be sort of double bubble really for us.
And I guess a lot of them, appreciate the fact that you are trying to help.
Yeah, definitely. We very, very rarely meet somebody who doesn't want our help or gets aggressive. Not to say it doesn't happen, but we've all got extra training in how to deal with that. So yeah, we just have a good time, and we like making sure that people have a good time in Maidstone rather than a bad experience.
And you mentioned you rock up. Where do you park up?
We park our big bus and put up our big gazebo right here on Jubilee Square, just up by the Queen's Monument. We're a big converted ambulance bus, so you really can't miss us. Luckily, all the door staff and the police and everyone knows where we are.
How are you doing for volunteers yourself?
We always need volunteers. All we ask is that somebody can come and offer us maybe one weekend a month. If anyone's interested, they can always email us or go on our website. Easiest way is to email us on urbanbluebus@gmail.com. Nice and easy to remember.
Brilliant. Val Jacobs from the Urban Blue Bus, thanks for being with us. It is BBC Radio Kent, live from Maidstone. We're in Jubilee Square at 19 minutes past 4 with George Ezra. From Sadler's Farm down towards the Waterside Farm roundabout now. Also some delays on Canvey Road I can see at the moment as well. Dartford Crossing quite busy from both sides of the river on the M25, and on the railways, well, no major problems, but there's a signalling fault at Barking, so that's affecting C2C rail services where they have to run at a reduced speed at the moment. Just looking at the departure board, a few slight delays just showing there, but no cancellations that I can see at the moment. If you can update me, 0800 111 4041. I'm Barry Lewis, and there's more in 30 minutes.
Lovely. Thank you, Barry.
BBC Essex is the sound of Essex, with every Colchester and Southend United game live. On Saturday, the Blues travel to Aldershot.
It's travelled an awful long way. Headed towards goal! BBC Essex Sports start at 2 with kick-off from 3.
Sadie 9.